Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maureen Casey, and I'm honored to serve as the Chief Operating Officer here at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. I think I can answer the first question I saw in the chat, which was, is that snow on the ground behind you in Syracuse? And the answer to that question is a yes, sadly. We woke up to a few inches of snow here this morning, but hopefully it will be gone by tomorrow. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this session today in recognition of this month of the military child. We are very proud to partner with the Military Child Education Coalition and its president and CEO, Dr. Becky Porter. Our organizations are aligned in many ways, but in particular, as we recognize and celebrate our military children. After all, as I've come to learn after doing this work for the last 10 years, it certainly is the family that serves. Our goal today is to share with you insights and information and to answer your questions. We want to talk about the strengths and positive outcomes of growing up as a military child, as well as the challenges that they face, and the foundations that it provides as a stepping stone to higher education. To do this, in addition to hearing from Dr. Porter, we are the IVMF, so we do love our data. And so you will be hearing from one of our research fellows about the data and the research behind some of these outcomes and challenges. And we're going to bring you a unique perspective, we think, from a Syracuse University student who is also a military child. As I think Lindsay mentioned in the chat, we will be taking questions, so feel free to post them throughout the session in the question and answer box. It is now my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce you to MCEC's president and CEO, Dr. Becky Porter. She has a distinguished military career, retiring as an Army colonel, and we're just thrilled that she agreed to partner with us today for this session. So Becky, over to you.
Thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. It's such a great opportunity to partner with organizations like yours, because while you're evidence-based and research-driven, MCEC has a 22-year history of looking at the data, and if the data don't exist, we go and make some data. And we had a seminal, that doesn't mean we make it up, but we had what I consider a seminal study back in 2001 called the Secondary Education Transition Study, or SETS, where we started to look at what were the challenges that military-connected kids face, what were the solutions to that, and we've continued that in our history. And I look forward to talking about some of that today. What are the challenges, but how do military-connected kids really rise to those challenges and by and large look back at their time of their parents' service and can see what positive comes from it.
Thanks so much, Becky. And as I mentioned, we would not be the IVMF without our data. So also joining us today is Rachel Linsner. Rachel is an IVMF doctoral research fellow, and she has been focused on military and veteran families. Rachel is a PhD candidate in the Department of Human Development and Family Science here at Syracuse University. And I'm really, really pleased and thrilled to welcome Darasha Singleton, who is a military child and a Syracuse University Newhouse School of Communication student who's actually ready to graduate with a degree in broadcast and digital journalism this spring. And we're just thrilled that she agreed to join us and be a part of today's session. So with that, we're going to jump right in. I think we often focus on the challenges and don't spend enough time talking about the positive outcomes that can come from being in a military family. So we'll talk about the challenges in a moment, but what we want to focus on right now are the positive outcomes and strengths associated with growing up in a military home. Rachel, I'm going to start with you. Can you elaborate on some of those strengths of our military children?
Yes, thank you so much, Maureen, and thanks to everyone for joining. I think probably most of us on this call can appreciate, that question and coming from, sort of a strengths-based perspective. Of course, there are stressors and there are challenges that military children and their families are dealing with, but I think we really neglect, the full story if we only focus on sort of negative outcomes or negative moments in time. And we also know that when we sort of structure our programs and resources to come from a strengths-based approach, we want to highlight skills, we want to enhance strengths and skills. Those programs and resources are much more engaging for families and children. You don't want to sign up for something that makes it sound like you're at a disadvantage or that you're not dealing with something well. So it's more engaging and it's more beneficial for families and children. So I think it's important for all of us to come at a lot of these discussions from that kind of perspective and approach. And we know from, anecdotal evidence that, from people that all of us hear from, as well as the research, particularly our research with Blue Star Families, that there are many positive aspects of service for children as well as for their parents. In previous years of the annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey, we heard from active duty family respondents that reported several different sort of types of positive character traits that they felt their children had developed as a result of their family's military service. So some really commonly cited traits include things like adaptability. Parents, would talk about their child being flexible, about their ability to adapt to new situations and experiences, that they were resilient. That's a word we hear a lot when we talk about military children, and we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. We also heard a lot about openness. So parents said, my child really has this greater appreciation, kind of like wise beyond their years appreciation for other cultures, other regions, other backgrounds. Oftentimes parents shared, that their child was really open to new experiences, that they were really willing to try new things, kind of like maybe put themselves out there and trying new things. So that's another really positive trait. Additionally, we heard from parents about kindness. So these military children, if they're accustomed, to frequently relocating, starting at new schools, they know how it feels to be the new kid in the classroom or the new kid on, the athletic team. They know how it feels to experience other, kind of stressors, how it feels to be separated from a family member. And a lot of parents expressed a great deal of pride in watching their child, be so compassionate and empathetic towards their peers and their classmates. And there is actually some evidence in our research and in other research that some of these more challenging experiences like relocations or, transitioning to a new school, like deployment even, can promote the development of healthy coping behaviors and positive traits in their children. So, if this applies to children outside of the military as well, right? When you encounter a stressor, that, sort of puts you in a position where you're having to access a new skill set or build upon a new skill set and develop these healthy sort of mechanisms in dealing with the stressors. So again, in our research with Blue Star Families in the annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey, we heard from active duty family respondents. We asked them about positive outcomes of deployments. And so some of the things that we heard were, increased independence. So a child is having to kind of maybe contribute more to their home, maybe kind of, they have to be the one to remember to put their homework in their backpack. We heard about resilience again. We heard a lot about, a sort of sense of pride in their parent, in their family, in their country and also in themselves. They're overcoming challenging experiences or challenging times in their lives. So that was also related to personal growth. There is research, out there on positive development in kids. I don't know that this framework has been applied to military children. To my knowledge, it is not, but it's the 7 C's of positive development. And, I think a lot about competence, confidence, contribution. Those are just some examples that I think are really easy to apply to military children, that those sort of traits are enhanced in them. We know that there are a lot of benefits to being a part of the larger military community, to these friendships that they make with military children. We've heard from parents, that these children have really close relationships that results that, are formed as a result of military life, because you have this really shared understanding with other kids. Even during the pandemic, we have done some research again with Blue Star Families about children's experiences, with COVID-19, and a lot of families reported, some positive outcomes, like it sort of strengthened our family bonds and we were able to spend more time together. Of course, there are challenges as well, just in general and during the pandemic, but it's certainly important to highlight the strengths. And I think that sort of a common myth is that all military children are the same. They all have the same set of experiences and it puts them all at a disadvantage and there's negative outcomes. But in reality, there's a really wide range of experiences and most children do well overall. So you would never apply, a one-size-fits-all approach in parenting or providing resources for civilian children. The same thing applies to military children. They have not all experience the same set of life circumstances. There's all these other, variables and contextual factors that impact how one individual child or one family reacts to certain stressors. So I think that assumption that all military children are the same is a part of sort of a wider lack of knowledge or understanding sometimes in, care providers and educators and other, in civilian peers and civilian families. And that can, kind of exacerbate difficulties for military children. And I know that, as Becky mentioned, MCEC has quite a bit of data and research as well. And they have their most recent survey I read, very excitedly, and they talked about how they actually were able to survey military children. And a lot of these children shared that a host of things that they wish their schools and their teachers and their peers knew about their lives, about their experiences, and how that knowledge, would help them. And so with that, I'll pass things over to Becky.
Thanks, Rachel. Did we want to hear from Duration before I start yammering?
We're going to let you go, Becky, and then we'll go to Duration.
Okay, great. Well, Duration, I just wanted to get it out there that you're the adult military kid on the panel, and you're representing, but you're not representative, right? So thanks, Rachel, for kind of putting some context out there. What we've seen in military connected students and in military kids in general is that, you mentioned that they're not all the same. I think that any of us who have been a parent in a military family can tell you that even from one kid to the other, there are differences. I recall somebody asking me about my daughter who was not really interested in academics as she was growing up. They asked, has she narrowed down her choices for college? And I said, every day she does things to narrow her choices. And by that I meant she was singularly focused on extracurricular activities. And I'm proud to report that she is about 3 months away from finishing her dissertation right now. So I heard from her as at one point when we were getting ready to PCS, you are ruining my life. And I would encourage people to remember that that's probably common phrase among adolescents, whether they're military connected or not, but that really when they grow up and do whatever they decide to do, whether it's go to college, whether it's pursue some kind of a vocational experience, they look back on their experiences of being the new kid, of being in a new school, being separated from their parent who's deployed, and they can see the positive aspects of that. And I think that when you were talking, Rachel, about compassion, I was at the same time, I was writing down compassion, because I think that's one of the things that we have that really fuels the student programs that we have at MCEC, the student to student or S2S programs, where the students are, it's a leadership program, but it's also for them to welcome new students into the school. And so some of our research tells us that those first 2 weeks in a new school are really critical to being able to adjust, to fit in, and feeling like this is going to be a place where you as a student can thrive. And so something like student to student or other peer welcoming program can go a long way to helping that student to feel welcome. And I think, and Deracia can let me know if she's had any experiences with this, but I think that that part of why those are successful and why those kinds of programs get stood up is because military connected kids have the compassion that comes from the experience of being the new kid in the school. There are other programs that are out there to facilitate that kind of development, like Purple Star Schools program. But before I jump into any of that, I don't want to monopolize the time, but there are lots of examples of how military connected students can drive change based on their experience.
Thank you, Becky. Deracia, we're going to hear from you. Tell us about all those wonderful strengths you have.
Definitely. Thank you all for having me here, first of all. And I would just like to say, Rachel, your research definitely is okayed by me, because adaptability and resilience was the top strengths on my list. Just having two parents younger at the time in a Middle East, very dangerous areas at that time, just forced me to pretty much, again, back to adaptability, to adapt to different living environments. And another big thing I would say for me as a military child is diversity. And I believe you both spoke on that a little. But yes, I've been pretty much in those diverse situations and areas since I was younger. And it really has helped out. And also another thing personally is like, I had a unique experience to where I didn't really move around a lot, not really a new kid so much, but even younger, as you spoke on, Becky, with those programs. I was actually in a program in my elementary school back in South Carolina. And that was a time that I was away from my parents and lived with other family members. I was in a program at my school that was dedicated to military children. And it really did help out. And for me to be that young and still remember the program, and they really catered to us. I mean, it had to do something well. But also another thing that I would just say, it's so funny as a military child. I think this comes with it. I have so many like best friends, and I think it's because I didn't move around a lot, but everybody else moved around a lot. And as you begin to know more people, I mean, hey, you have a lot of similarities with a lot of people. So I think that also comes with it. Like a lot of people like, how do you have so many, good friends? And I think that comes in with just, I didn't move around, but other people did. I met new people, but I stayed in contact with those friends. So those are just a few things that I would say was some strengths: adaptability, resilience, and diversity.
Thank you very much, Deracia. And you can certainly see that it has laid a foundation for you. I think one of the things that we can all learn from and understand better and help in that adjustment is to understand what those challenges are. We've referenced, made reference to some of them already, but I think that really trying to understand better what those challenges are will help those of us who are serving the military connected community do that better. So Rachel, I'm going to come back to you for some of that data on those challenges.
Great, thank you. I think that, you know, some of the things that we all just talked about as being opportunities are also things that can be experienced, you know, as challenges as well. So that again is not unique to military life. I don't think there's a lot of experiences that we all go through that can you know, be strengthening and stressful at the same time. And so I think that there's a lot to talk about there with how that sort of response can vary from child to child. Like Becky said, you know, even within the same family, different children have different responses to things. And so, you know, we know that some of the most common challenges are, you know, types of transition. So that could be relocations, that could be reintegration after deployment. You know, the service member parent is returning home from a deployment or from time away. That's a period of, you know, sort of transition for the family. Also at the IVMF, we focus a lot on the transition to civilian life following separation from the military. And that is a big, you know, life change for military children as well. The other common piece or common element of military life for children is separation. So that can include things like deployments, that can include separation from sort of like extended family members as well as parents, separation from friends, right, that you've made over the years. It also includes time apart from the service member parent or parents due to training, due to schooling. We've found in our research that time away from family as a result of service, and that's not just limited to deployment, just time away in general, is a top issue of concern for both active duty family respondents and for veteran family respondents. You know, kind of like, what was the long-term impact on my family of this time that we spent apart? And there's honestly not a huge amount of research out there that gets at those long-term effects. You know, there's not a lot of longitudinal studies that are following families and children throughout this experience, throughout the military career and afterwards. There's anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of other sort of periods in time that we can look at, but there's both in terms of negatives and positives. We don't know very much about long-term sort of outcomes. There have been, you know, studies and research done that associate, you know, military moves with some negative impacts like worsened grades or increased symptoms of anxiety and depression. But again, that's overall like a pretty low prevalence for military children. So those things can happen, but overall, still we're seeing that most military children are doing well. In our research with Blue Star Families, we've asked, like I said, about sort of the positive outcomes related to deployment. We've also asked about negative outcomes related to deployment. We know that many parents cite things like, you know, internalizing behaviors, which we think about as anxiety, you know, worry, fear for their parents' safety or well-being, trouble sleeping, separation anxiety. But there's also externalizing behaviors like acting out, poor school performance, maybe being, you know, sort of like increased fighting and aggression with their siblings, things like that. Some of the research that's out there on these sort of outcomes indicate that a lot of these kind of negatives, if you will, are confined to the deployment period. So while the service member parent is deployed, there is stress, it is difficult. Maybe there will be some dips in academics, maybe there will be some acting out, but then when the service member parent returns, it seems like things kind of level out again. And that maybe these aren't sort of long-term, we're not looking at kind of long-term effects here, or long-term persistence of these issues. But there's really important exception there that comes up in the research, which if there is sort of like a deployment related trauma, like an injury or something like that, then sometimes these results or these resulting issues can persist, or they can kind of continue. And then that's where it's really important that all of these wonderful resources and programs that we know are available, that they kind of come into play. It's also really, really important to think about all the individual factors that play into these outcomes. So things vary so widely by child age, their developmental stage, their temperament. So younger children might have a harder time sleeping when a parent's deployed. They might kind of regress in some behaviors that they had previously developed or you thought they sort of had down. But then older children might be more anxious. They might be more worried. So things vary quite widely there. The timing and the duration of stressful events is important to think about. Is this a really long period of separation? Are you moving in the middle of the school year as opposed to the summertime? Is this child kind of also simultaneously going through really normative, typical stressors in their life? So like Becky said, most teenagers or adolescents might say something like, "You have ruined my life" to their parents. That's like typical development. That's what we want to see, I guess, in some ways. And so is it that there's a combination of other things that are, you know, playing a role in some of these sort of challenges? And that's really hard to tease apart, both as parents and as researchers and providers and educators, because all of those things are happening at the same time. So really children's responses to some of these challenging experiences depend on all of these other factors. And that can also be affected by parent traits, like parents' mental health, parents' employment situation, all these other types of things. So there's a lot that we don't know about yet, or we can't totally tease apart in the research. One thing that comes up quite a bit is the cumulative effect of stressors. So over time, in some cases we hear, okay, a family has experienced a handful of deployments. At the next one, they're like, we've got this down. We know our coping strategies. We know, what we rely on during these times. We have a social support system that we've set up for ourselves. And so in some cases, time and accumulation of things is a helpful feature for families. And in other cases, the cumulative impact of stressors can be difficult. When you add a pandemic on top of that, when you add homeschooling, spouse employment stressors, all of these other things, then the usual coping strategies might not be as helpful. So I think when we have these types of conversations, it's really important that we celebrate and acknowledge the resilience of military children, but also think about that there are some contexts or circumstances where that might be a big ask. That might be a lot to assume. And so how can we cater our programs and services to help children and families during those instances? Another, top concern that comes up year after year in the annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey is military child education. So we find that, again, active duty families, this is of major importance to them. We ask a question about geo-batching, or living apart for reasons other than deployment. And of those families who said that they had geo-batched in the past 5 years, 1/3 of them made that decision because of their children's education. So they want to provide stability for their children. They want their children to be able to attend top schools. And so this is, again, an area where Becky is absolutely the expert. So I will pass it back over to her.
Thanks, Rachel. There was so much that running through my mind while you were talking, and especially around the challenges. The survey that MCEC did last year around education issues for military students. As you said, we surveyed military students. We also surveyed their parents and their teachers and school counselors. And by and large, we were able to kind of put into buckets the two areas of concern. One were the social emotional things that we've really been kind of focusing on so far this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And then the other is some of the academic concerns specifically. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the real practical challenges that military students face, as well as their parents. And those are things like, how do I transfer credits from this school to another? Or what are the graduation requirements at the next place that we're going to be to move and to live? What schools, and you alluded to this, what are the schools that my parents or that I want to consider for my child going to the next duty location? And there are tools for that. I saw in the chat box somebody recommended, asked what would you recommend for people to know? There are tools like the School Quest, which is on the Military Child website. It's militarychild.org. It's on our website, and it's a free service that parents can sign up for. Students can sign up for it too, to track their academic progress, to track things like the next place they're going, what are the deadlines to try out for different teams, for different clubs. All of those kinds of things really come together to provide challenges for those students, but also to provide opportunities for them to kind of knit together the fabric of their experience growing up, whether it's the academic side of it or the social side of it. In my mind, they're interconnected. Duration, did I say anything there that made you go, yep, I agree? Or did I say anything that you're like, nope, that doesn't fit for me?
Yes, definitely so. Both of y'all, again, it's crazy to see how like the research you all have done amongst the military families, military connected students really hone in on like the experiences that I wrote or that I looked in on. For the pretty much in the educator's world, I would say that too, it takes a lot of patience for us too, that they may not really be keen on that. Like military childs need more of that patience when they come in there. They have these parents that are, everywhere in the world, and they come in and they try to do what they need to do, but they also should have a level of patience for us. And that I'm sure that goes in somewhere with psychology inside of, our head as well. And before I even get deeper into my answer, I would definitely be remiss if I didn't say that I am the daughter of three veterans, military veterans. My mom, Aisha Nichols, 20 years in the Army, father, 20 plus years in the Army, and also my stepfather, 20 years in the Marines. So I'm all around, 20 plus years in the Marines. So I'm all around, but yes. And also just thinking of an experience with me, I know at times, especially when I was younger and I was in this area in South Carolina, that's where I was while my parents were away. While I was there, and then spent years with different family members and had to come back to Fort Gordon. That's where I spent majority of my time. My first time really, not my first time, but just the time after a long time actually staying with my mother. I cried like every day, and I know that made her probably feel some sort of guilt. I cried every single day because I wasn't used to that area. I wasn't used to being with everybody. And I mean, when I was in South Carolina, the place that I stayed while they were gone, my aunt was my teacher. Like, I was just right there with people that I knew. And then now I'm in a new environment. I cried every day. I was taken to a daycare. It was just something that I had to get used to. So, yeah.
Arisha, I'm wondering, who do you root for when Army plays Navy?
Definitely Army. Definitely Army.
That's great. I think we're going to stay on the subject of, I think if, at least from my perspective, as I listen to you, Darisha, about sort of the foundation of being a military child and the experiences you had, both strong, both good ones and some that you had to navigate through. Just given how articulate and poised you are, certainly seems like it served as a good foundation for you. But I think it would be great for us to hear first from Becky and then back to you, Darisha, about that sort of military connected upbringing and how it does prepare you for higher education or whatever vocational or other path you might take. So Becky, I'm going to ask you first to sort of tell us a little more broadly, and then we're going to go back to Darisha.
Thank you, Maureen. So going along with the theme from that we've had so far, I think I'll talk first about some of the opportunities that the military upbringing provides for students as they get ready for college, and then some of the challenges. I think some of the opportunities come around the broad experiences that military connected students have. You know, living in other countries, living in even different states within the United States. Darisha mentioned, I think you said something about being diverse or being different in different places. My kids had that experience too. And this, I don't mean to make it about my kids, but you know, if you go to different states in the United States, there are different demographics, and you know, your kids are going to come home and say, I'm the only blank kid. It might be I'm the only military kid, and odds are that they're not the only military kid in the class. But that I think that those kinds of experiences teach military children how to be accepting, how to be humble. I think it's important for a child to experience what it's like to not be the majority. So there's that. And it also gives them a breadth of experiences with other cultures and other countries, and just kind of seeing that there's a broader world out there where they might want to go to college, or that includes things that they might want to study. The challenges around being a military student or a military child as you get ready to go to college can be things like I alluded to before, like, have you met all your graduation requirements in this new state where you've just moved in the last couple of years? Or more pointedly, for students who want to go on to college, what's my class ranking in the new system? I mean, some schools use a GPA of like 4.0. Some of them have an extended GPA system. Some of them don't even use that at all. But that's important for some schools when you're trying to apply. Your residency status for where you want to go to school. If you're applying to a state school, do you and your family meet the requirements for residency and in-state tuition? And then if your parents happen to be stationed overseas when you want to go visit colleges or when you're trying to apply to colleges, I mean, that adds a level of complexity to the process that somebody who's not in the military maybe doesn't experience on a regular basis. Darisha?
Yes, very true, and all keen points on what you stated out, because me pretty much coming to, yes, this is grad school, but both universities that I attended, we had to really seek out those opportunities that were given to military child connected members. I mean, there are a lot, but it's so hard to kind of get out there and find them all. And again, just being in different areas, knowing if the school is private, public, what you can do, with your benefits. Again, like I said, I'm the daughter of 3 veteran members, and it's hard because I can only use benefits from one veteran, can't use both. It's a tricky situation. And also, coming in, I would look for, of course, those scholarships and things that may connect to me specifically, being, a military dependent or a part of a military connected family. But those are just some things that I kind of looked towards when coming to a higher education and having to be in the new environment and everything.
Thank you. Before we open it up to questions from the audience, I did have one question. We talk often about the civilian military divide and the fact that particularly post 9/11, and we're very quickly coming up on that 20-year anniversary, less than 1/2% of us have served in the military. And so as families are moving from location to location, what is that like? So I wondered, Becky, if you could talk a little bit about the experiences from MCEC's perspective. I know that one of the first MCEC conferences I attended several years ago, and there had to be several hundred teachers sitting in the audience, and one of the questions that was asked was, of all of these teachers, was how many of you actually asked the question in your classrooms of, are any of your parents serving in the military, or have they served in the military? And only about half the room raised their hand. And I was so struck by that, because here they were at a conference for military children, and yet they weren't trying to find that out. And then the way I would pose the question to you, Daresha, is, do you talk about your folks and their military experience as you've been in college, whether here at Syracuse University or where else you went to school, and sort of what that's been like to educate others about your experience? So with that, Becky, to you first, and then we'll go to Daresha.
Thank you. The first thing that I think of when I hear about that question, like how many of you have asked if you have military connected students in your classroom, reminds me of my experiences in healthcare. And I think any of you can probably relate to this. You go in to see your primary care physician, and the person who's taking your vitals probably says, "Are you in any pain today?" Because that's been established as something that's important to know when you're providing care to someone. And I think, I think to myself, wouldn't it be nice if that were a similar approach in education, where teachers would say, "Are any of you connected to the military?" Because it provides some important context for a teacher or a school counselor to look at that child and how they're performing in school. But since we don't have that, I think there are a couple of things that do help in that regard. One is something called the Military Student Identifier, which was put into legislation as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, and requires schools to ask if you're connected, if the student is connected. Now, it's different from impact aid. This is more a way that schools can keep track, not at an aggregate level, so not of individual students, but keep track of how students are performing in their school system compared to other school systems, looking at military to military, or looking at military to civilian. So the military student identifier does that. And most recently, it was amended to include National Guard and Reserve students. And I think that's really important because those children are serving as well, even if they're not, like Deracia said, she's not moving a lot, or she didn't move a lot, but she still experienced those separations and the stress of knowing that she had a family member possibly in harm's way. And Guard and Reserve students go through that way more than a lot of people realize. I think, so that's one thing that I wanted to say about that. I also wanted to add that for opportunities for that to bridge that military civilian divide, programs like that, like what Deracia said she was in before, and our student to student programs, our S2S programs are for both military and civilian kids. So it provides an opportunity for the civilian students to kind of meet military families and meet military kids and kind of know a little bit more about their lives. Did I answer all your questions, Maureen? I feel like I had so much running through my brain.
You did absolutely
Okay.
fine. Thank you. And I'm going over to Deracia for her experience in that regard.
Thank you. Well, that question I think would be super helpful to ask, because I can't really think of a time that I've been blatantly pretty much asked that by a professor or a teacher, just right off the rip said, hey, who in here? You know, I don't remember that, but I think that would be a great thing to do. And also for me, I feel like as a military child, again, with choosing the universities, I wasn't afraid to go far. And I think that goes back to the adaptability. Like, I didn't yearn to go far from home, but again, being a military child, having these different experiences, diversity, it gives you a level playing field of not really being afraid to, you know, branch out. You've already been in these sticky situations. And also another thing that I just want to speak on is here at Syracuse, another thing amongst us military connected children that you don't really know until you meet them. But it was a couple students here, because I do share my experience. I think it's very unique. You know, I do share my experience that I think like it's a, you know, a cool kids club for us military kids. And again, back to what I was saying, I met two students here just of us saying our parents were in the military or are in the military. And just like that, we bonded quickly. We're like, well, hey, where were your parents stationed, or where did you live, and things like that. So I definitely do speak on my experiences, even in class, like any way I can get it in, it's in there. I mean, I was born in Germany, and that's, you know, probably a lot of military kids have great places that, or unique places that they were born. So yes, I speak on my experience a lot, and just speaking on that experience, I'm able to meet other military connected children and just bond over that and speak on it. And being here at the university, it just kind of brings us together.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking at some of the questions here. And Rachel, I'm going to come back to you, and then I think Becky will have you follow up, which there's a few questions around the impact of between parental relationships and the impact on their children. So two things here. One was around what does the research tell us about, you know, parents and their deployments and what impact that has on parental relationships, and then coping strategies and what we know works. So Rachel, maybe you could take the research part of the question, and then we can ask Becky about, you know, the coping strategies for parents too, as they try to help navigate for their military connected children.
Thank you, and thanks for that question. I think that, you know, there is a lot out there. Like I said, there's a host of, you know, research articles and studies that have specifically focused on deployment and how, you know, the deployment related experiences of the parent can impact the child. So there is, there's a lot out there about traumatic experiences and how those in parents can impact children. But again, there's also sort of like opportunities related to this. So there's, a lot of families that kind of get creative with including their service member parent who, is away for a period, still trying to make an effort to include them in their everyday lives or in special events, things like that. I think in terms of, the broader research, what we're seeing is that this is a big, sort of, if it's a deployment, if it's time away, what have you, this is a disruption in the family's life and in their individual lives. And so there are a number of programs out there, some of them, are evidence-based and that have, been successful in addressing sort of some of these like reintegration challenges for both parents and children. So one in particular is actually addressing parenting skills. And so what they're finding is that that's really the important predictor of positive outcomes for the whole family is, sort of targeting the parents' ability to cope with stressful situations. So let's say, a parent is on a combat deployment and then they come back and their child is having a tantrum about something that by comparison seems a little bit silly. And so like kind of managing this, that's a very different type of stress, right? When your child is crying and throwing a tantrum. And so sort of how can you transition from, a really different environment back to the home environment. And so there have been some successful programs in targeting parenting skills or parenting strategies. And there've also been a number of programs that have been researched in the civilian world that are talking about, improving the sort of resilience related outcomes in parents and children related to a number of sort of factors or circumstances. I think one thing that's really important is to think